All right, well, today we're going to talk about the various presentations of tea. The most common ones are these little baggies and the newer, more improved sachets and the ever so powerful loose leaf. And we'll get to why that is. Now, with the baggies, they always typically come in a type of paper, usually a recycled paper, and they split in the middle like so because when water flows through the baggie, it actually increases the seeping power versus if it was just a regular baggie. Now, what I'm going to do is show you what's inside of it. Now, typically with baggies, I guess you could say they're ground. They're chopped up into tiny little bits, right? And the way you usually get this, it's not actually ground by an actual grinder. It's really just the dredges for when they are dealing with loose leaf tea. They shake them, and the things that fall at the end is this. And this is what they put in the baggies and sell it for really, really cheap. Now, this is both good and bad. Usually you don't get very good quality out of it. However, what you do get is very fast seep times because the leaves are so small that they brew really fast, super fast, versus long or loose leaf tea, which are very long and you have to actually wait for it to quote unquote unwind. Now, the next item here is called a sachet. Now, sachets are a little different. They started out using silk, but now, of course, that's expensive, so now they use a type of nylon. And the reason why they're doing this is they want to mix the option of having loose leaf tea with a baggie. And this is what you get. You get a sachet with loose leaf tea. In this particular case, this is supposed to be a white tea, and a white tea is supposed to be the buds. But you could tell, I'll show you, this is obviously not pure white tea in the sense that it's been ground. Been ground up and mixed with some other stuff in order to make it flavored, because white tea in and of itself is a very faint, distinct flavor. Now this is mixed with herbs and other stuff in it, but this is about as close to loose leaf in a bag as you are going to get, are the sachets. There you could tell the particles are bigger. That means this can actually seep a long time without it turning sour. In fact, actually the instructions are 5 to 8 minutes on this, believe it or not. The final is loose leaf. Now, loose leaf is the purest form of the tea, and and this is a black tea. It's an Earl Grey. They roll this around sometimes by hand, and mostly it's done to bruise the tea so that when it starts to ferment. Some teas actually they go in and literally even finely wrap it by hand, and those are really expensive teas. But the benefit here is that when you're seeping it, you're waiting for the leaf to unfold, and as it unfolds, it releases the caffeine, the tannins, the antioxidants, everything about it, the flavor. It starts to just unfold and unleash. And if you keep it for too long, it actually gets to the bitter side of it, and it's gross. But the concentration of flavor is far more superior in loose leaf than in these little baggies. This is really the weakest form. It'll actually brew really fast and then kind of, leave you hanging. And these are much better quality, but it's kind of really a mix between the two. And this, of course, being the absolute best. And then what we're going to do is we'll show you what some of this looks like when you brew it, at least the baggies. Now you'll see there is actually a way to brew these. They don't exactly tell you. They just say, brew the tea and then, let it cool. Well, truthfully, you really want it to be a specific temperature. However, in this particular instance, you want to pour the water directly over the bag, always on top of the bag. Never brew it to the side or pour it. It has to be poured directly over the bag. And the reason for that is it actually increases the saturation of the leaves on the hot water versus waiting for it to soak it up from the cup. It's just not as beneficial. With the sachet, identical procedure. Same exact procedure. Do not brew around it. Well, these cups are really small, but so you really don't have much choice. But you want to brew right on top of it, just like that. Brew it right on top. And you do want to have a timer. I recommend you do not time this, using your own thoughts. You really want to try to time this exactly. Now, obviously, I don't have a timer, so we will not be timing this one exactly. But essentially, this one would brew for about 5 to 8 minutes, depending on strength. And the bancha hojicha, which is a Japanese green tea that's been toasted, can actually brew anywhere between 3 to 5 minutes. With the bancha hojicha, it's actually very medicinal. It's an anti-inflammatory, and if you have some intestinal issues or aches and pains, this is a really good tea for that. And this from Harney and Sons is just a fun tea. It's got a lot of flavor. They're kind of like I said, white teas have a tendency to be very light in flavor, very delicate, and you actually don't want a full rolling boil on a white tea. But in this case, they don't tell you to do that. And since it has the vanilla and the grapefruit flavonoids in it, I guess the brewing times are different. So when this brews, it'll actually taste almost like chocolate, believe it or not. And loose leaf you can buy even sometimes in the supermarket just as is. Now, a bit of a hint here is that if you go there and they have it in clear vials or any kind of glass that's clear, and so ergo it's been shined on with light, the quality of the tea is going to diminish. Light will diminish the tea. So if they have it in sealed tins that are not exposed to light, the freshness is going to be much better, and you could trust it a little bit more. In this particular case, I don't remember who the manufacturer is, but it is organic. And as you can see, they've even supplied us with a few stems. Ooh, that would actually be an indication of low quality tea. Higher quality teas, they don't include the stems. The different kinds of teas, we can discuss at another time, and we'll get into those. Apparently we will be waiting to see how these brew. And if you can pick up that music in the interlude, that'll be as close as you get to an intermission. And you can see the color is building up on the bottom there. It's staining the bottom, and obviously when I lift this out, the whole water will cloud up and actually be a lot darker. Same thing with this. You'll notice the same thing. It seeps from the bottom, and when you pull it out, it'll of course mix with the regular water, and it'll be one particular color. Again, white teas usually brew kind of an off yellow, a very, very light yellow. But since they're adding in vanillas and grapefruits and other stuff in there, it's going to be a lot darker. And the bancha hojicha will also brew relatively dark. And as far as sugar goes, that's, of course, to people's tastes. I could tell you that some teas react better when you add cream to it or milk, because they are so thick that the proteins in the milk bond to the tea. These two teas, you do not want to add cream. I do not recommend sugar for the bancha. It's because it's like I said, it's more medicinal, and if you're dealing with medicinal stuff, you really don't want to add sugar. And but the other one, the vanilla white tea, yeah, by all means, sugar makes it taste kind of yummy. Okay, it's been 4 minutes. We're going to go ahead and remove these. I mean, I'm of the opinion that I do not rebrew baggies, period. They're meant to be discarded, thus they're discarded. Loose leaf tea, on the other hand, you can choose to rebrew them, especially with the green teas, and the reason for that is because you're at a low temperature with a shorter amount of time. You can easily rebrew it. Black teas, you're brewing for a large amount of time and at a higher temperature, so I strongly suggest you don't rebrew black tea, unless you want to feel like an 18th century commoner, because that's what happened. The commoners They drank the sometimes third and fourth brewings of it. And that's actually why the cream and sugar really came into play, because that's how they got around the severe bitterness. And that's what would happen. The longer you brew these teas, the more bitter they suddenly become, which is why you really want to drink your tea as soon as possible. Now, I'm not talking about shooting it down like a shot, but you don't want to let it sit for too long. It'll start to coagulate, and because it's still brewing, technically. Believe it or not, after you take this out, the particles that are left in the water continue to brew. Now, this is what it looks like after it's brewed. As you can see, the leaves have expanded. It filled up pretty much the entire thing, whereas before it didn't. Same thing with this. It became thick, mushy. But see, now with the baggies, there's not a whole lot of room to grow. They're already too teeny tiny. They don't unfold. So they don't expand as much as loose leaf definitely expands, gets bigger, makes a large mess. But yeah, I would discard these baggies. They're really not a lot of reusability. There might be a way with which perhaps to use them as potting soil, since they're very low acidic, similar to coffee beans, but again, not as acidic. But yeah, I don't reuse my baggies. So I have a high carbon footprint, I suppose. And this is Brandon McKinney, signing off about tea for now.